It is 7:44 now. Alabama's Morning News. I'm JT. As we know, we have Congressman Barry Moore defeating Jared Hudson in the Senate race on the Republican side of things last week, coming through the primary as the candidate. Now, he was backed by President Trump, and apparently this has been a factor in a lot of different races around the country. The person that gets the nod from the president 9 times out of 10 is sailing through and coming in the lead. Daily Mail U.S. political reporter Victoria Churchill joins us now. Victoria, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me back. Always great to be with you.
Absolutely. So apparently the Trump nod is a good thing to have. And could this end up helping midterms out as well?
Well, that's a question you're asking. I'm also asking. I've been traveling across the country. I just got done talking to voters in South Carolina, actually not too far from you guys. Well, at least, comparatively, I guess, from our perspective in D.C. South Carolina's got a runoff just tomorrow for their gubernatorial races. They've got, Pamela Abbott, who's the state's lieutenant governor. She was backed by Trump all throughout the primary, and then on Friday he weighed in to say that he's backing both candidates that are in the race. And, I think that just goes to show that Trump wants to back people that win, but also most people that he backs does win, or do win, excuse me. And, I think that that's notable because there's only 2 cases so far, at least, where candidates that have been endorsed by Trump have not won their primaries. And that was, of course, in the Iowa governor's race with Randy Feenstra, and then as well as in Georgia, his pick did not make it through the primary. So it looks like the president's nod is enough to drive a lot of at least the primary voters, the base, out. And I think that that's good for him. And I also think that, maybe he and his team were looking at polling and they did not want to notch another loss in South Carolina. So they decided to go ahead and back both candidates. And that's actually something that Trump has done also, if you recall. I believe it was in Missouri. He backed 2 Erics back in a prior race as well. So, he is always willing to throw his weight behind candidates, and candidates are very happy to receive that. Of course, in South Carolina, obviously it's a pretty red state, but I also found an interesting tidbit from the ground when I was talking to voters there. Some of the Democrats that I was talking to, because I went to both, Democrat and Republican events as part of my reporting, and the Democrats were saying that a lot of the people that are coming into the state by about an 80-20 margin are Republicans. And so at least for states like South Carolina, it looks like that state is going to stay Republican for a while.
Well, let's look at the other side of this as well. As we see most candidates that get the endorsement from President Trump end up doing quite well. On the Democratic side of things, though, you see people like Graham Plattner in Maine, who has all the controversy surrounding him, but people are like, well, we all make mistakes. I'm going to vote for him anyway. And in normal races, people that have that kind of ick on them don't usually do well. And then you look at what's going down with the doubling down of the Mandanis across the world, or across this country, rather, when it comes to the socialist movement, and people are making noise and they're getting these votes. I mean, you see the Republicans, very conservative, sticking with Trump's plan, and then the other side getting away from the moderate Democrats. So what does that do for these blue-collar Democrats that aren't into socialism? I mean, where do you think the Democrat Party stands now? Is this just a fad and a blip, or, I mean, are we seriously looking at trying to get this country back into another big direction of socialism? It's crazy.
Well, it actually does seem to be that the more progressive candidates are winning their primaries for the most part. I think I saw a graphic a couple of days ago of some of the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, the D-TRIP. They had selected a couple of candidates that they considered to be their red to blue candidates. So these are kind of the more centrist, or, traditionally you'd call them the blue dog Democrats, who they had selected as people that could actually win a seat in November. And Democrat voters haven't even put those people through the primary, which I think is interesting. There's been pushback among Democrats for a number of years when you look at of course, the rise of AOC and people like her, where basically people were saying, we're not going to listen to the party brass. We're not going to even necessarily listen to like the longtime consultants and other people like that have kind of more significant voices in the Democrat Party. Of course, when it comes to nominating contests and things like that, they have the super delegates whose voices are weighted higher in their nominating contests than, as the Republicans. It's just all delegates. And so, I think still Democrats are willing to put up those more progressive candidates to, kind of flex their muscle in some of these contests.
Well,
if that may not necessarily be a win in November.
Well, I guess it depends on where you live on whether or not these progressives are gaining any traction, because I think nationally speaking, the country doesn't want to go in that direction. But is this a gift to the Republicans for midterms, or is this a warning?
Well, I think it's a gift in the sense that, particularly when you look at, people like Plattner, I've done some of my own reporting on, for example, again, when you talk about the consultants, he shares a consultant, for example, with Dan Osborne, who is a quote-unquote independent running in the Nebraska Senate race. He's the independent that actually the Democrat dropped out so that he would be kind of the only real other viable, if you want to say that, candidate against Pete Ricketts in the statewide race for the U.S. Senate. So, it's really interesting because when you look at actually some of the writing that consultant has done, he says that the way for Democrats, or for really Democrat socialists to win, is for them to take over the Democrat Party. But it's also interesting that he's got, in this case, there is no Democrat Party to contend with because the Democrat candidate dropped out. And I'm pretty sure that this is something they said they were going to do even when they were running in the primary. Well,
I got to tell you, this whole thing with socialism and these people that are, winning in these different pockets around the country, it's like, okay, I mean, that's the bizarre little pocket right there. But it seems more and more you keep hearing about these people doubling down. You got the old squad, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. They're all like, oh, yeah, this is the new Democratic Party. I can't, never say never, but I mean, my gosh, the response on these people in their pockets has been overwhelming. And Mamdani winning the New York mayoral race, still quite shocking to me, but it's happening. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Victoria Churchill. We'll have you back.